From the Department of Basic Education, from their media WhatsApp group this afternoon, that some of the grades that were due to go back on Monday, back to school that is, will no longer be going back. So the department has decided and announced this afternoon that only grade 6, grade 11 and grade R's will join the matrics and grade 7s. The previous plan up until just half an hour ago was that grade 3 and grade 10 learners would also be going back on Monday. So just to confirm this then, grade 3 and grade 10 learners will no longer be going back to school on Monday, but grade R, grade 6 and grade 11 learners will be going back to school. Now, this came on the back of confirmation from the Eastern Cape Department of Education just an hour or so ago, after that it had written to the Department of Basic Education saying it was not ready to have more learners returning to its schools. Let's speak now to the Executive Director of the Teachers Union, NAPTOSA, Basil Manuel. Basil, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us at short notice. Your first reaction to this news from government?
I think it's a sober reflection on what is happening on the ground. And secondly, let us acknowledge that the Minister has been true to her word in that she had said that if schools aren't ready, we wouldn't go back. But it came on the back of quite a bit of pressure being applied to the department. We will now see that we are indeed ready for the grades that are supposed to go back now with the new statement. Because remember, our concerns are still there. We must have all the things in place for these new grades now to go back. So our concerns don't evaporate, but it is a far better proposal than the one we've originally had.
I do need to ask if you believe the grades that are still scheduled to be going back, so grade 6, grade 11 and grade R, do you believe they should be going back? I mean, will the decision not to send the other two grades back lift up enough of the load, if you like?
Well, Stephen, it's actually grade 1, 2 and 3 that aren't going back, because it was R1, 2 and 3. And so it certainly alleviates the congestion that would have been at school, and it certainly does get us to a point where it becomes a little more manageable. However, it doesn't take away the concerns we still have. We have to go out, and we will be doing this today and tomorrow to check that we are indeed going to be able to manage that load.
There's a lot still to be done over the weekend, I would imagine, tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Do you think it can be done? Are we going to wake up on Monday morning and find some schools just aren't ready? I mean, I'd imagine there are probably one or two schools that actually haven't taken all of their matrics and grade 7s yet.
Yes, Stephen, and this is the problem. There are at least, at last count, there were at least 60 to 70 schools that hadn't opened from the first cohort. So add to that the schools where the departments in the provinces would just have failed to deliver the necessary PPEs to see that the water tanks, which have been there, have been filled, and that additional water tanks have been put in. Remember that the water tanks that were supplied were for the cohort that was there. But those tanks are then not sufficient for the next cohort. So there are many, many things that have to be ticked off before we can comfortably say, this is what we accept and this is what we are happy with. We want to see that the children are taken care of, the teachers are taken care of, and of course that the parents then have that sense of comfort that things are on an even keel.
Do you think that the entire school year is now at risk? I mean, we were expecting a large number, and there was a timetable for all of this, and the department says it will try and stick to a timetable. We'll try and get most children back by August. But when you have a delay just a few days before some of the grades are going to go back, I mean, it suggests that actually, and we're still expecting to have a larger number, let me start this again, and we're still expecting a large number of COVID-19 cases, both in Gauteng and the Western Cape and other parts of the country. One has to start seriously considering if the school year is in jeopardy.
Stephen, we must accept that the school year has been severely disrupted. We must accept that we can't make up time that is lost. It's a nonsense to assume that we can. But what we do need to do is we need to save learning in certain places. The grade 1s must learn to read, and you've got to get that done. And I've been at pains to say, in the GET phase, which is from grade 1, and the senior phase, which ends in grade 9, the only thing that we need to do is to ensure that we have recovered from our weaknesses. And our weaknesses are in reading, it's in language, and it's in mathematics. And if those are the only three things we do for the remainder of the year, it would have been a successful year. The matriculants are our only major concern where we are trying to run against the clock. So I think learning can still happen. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as before, but we must make sure that it works for us. COVID-19 must have been positive in some way. If it's going to be positive for education, well, then I'm going to celebrate.